If you want to experience moments of joy, excitement, and satisfaction, visit the Honda Summer Spectacular event, where well-qualified buyers can get 0.9% APR on the 2018 Honda Pilot, part of KBB.com's 2018 Best Overall Brand. You've just entered car buying bliss.
See dealer for financing details based on 2018 branded Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit KBB.com for information.
I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. Ooh, I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years, and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Hey everyone, Kristin Sunanta Walker here, your host of Mental Health News Radio, and I am here with Dr. Edward Hallowell, which we'll call Ned for the remainder of the show. Ned, thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to tell our listeners a snippet about you, and then I want you to enlighten them further. But you are an acclaimed psychiatrist and author of bestsellers like Driven to Distraction. You published your memoir, Because I Come from a Crazy Family, and that came out June 12th of this year?
Yes, indeed it did.
Recent. Okay. So, Ned, tell our listeners anything I might have missed in there.
Well,
I'm sure it's a lot. You pick. You pick what you want to share.
Let's say I'm 68 years old. You're right. I'm a child and adult psychiatrist. I'm married. I have 3 children, all in their 20s. I live in the Boston area. We just got a new dog after our wonderful dog died a couple of months ago. We have a new dog named Max. What else would your listeners want to hear about? This is my 20th book, but it's quite unlike any book I've written before because, as you said, this is a memoir, and it's about my growing up years and then my early years in training. And it's very different because it's a storybook. There's no advice in it. It's a book about my wonderfully crazy family. I love them, and they were different for sure. And then about my years in training at the Massachusetts Mental Health Center, my years in medical school at Tulane.
Well, let me ask you this then, because we have many wonderful people. We have a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Paul Meyer that is on regularly, and he's written over 100 books, and he owns multiple mental health centers and spoken all over the world and so on. He's about your age, and he finally started writing about himself later in his career. So that's interesting to me that, is this book so different because you got very personal in it?
Yeah. I mean, I've always, been somewhat personal. I've been very open about the fact that I have ADHD and dyslexia in all my books about those conditions. But this is the first time where the whole book has been in the memoir genre, and there's no advice. All my other books have been, in the self-help genre, but this is purely stories, and I really enjoyed telling stories. At heart, I'm a storyteller, and also that I wanted in being very open about my eccentric and different family, I wanted to sort of give permission for people to be open. I think the secrecy and stigma that surrounds mental illness, mental difference, mental, whatever you want to call it, is so damaging. And so I wanted to at least to do my part by just, showing, getting naked, and showing who I am.
Yeah, and it's healing too. It's healing for you that you get to share, your story too. It comes with that gift with it also. So how was the reaction of your family about you sharing? Because a lot of the stigma also comes into families where they're like, you better keep all those things that went on a secret.
Oh no, my family's very open. They loved it. They loved it. I mean, the older folks have gone to heaven, so I don't know what they're saying up there. But I think they would have loved it too, because I was brought up on a code of openness and honesty. Although my grandmother was sort of secretive about my father's condition, but other than that, we were open. We were. Be real,
rare.
And it is very rare. It's very rare. It's very rare. And so they were fine about it. And my kids, they knew nothing about this, so they were very grateful. Thanks, Dad, for telling us. And my God, I'm glad you didn't bring us up in that kind of atmosphere. And I said, well, they didn't do it on purpose. The fact that they were drunk and crazy was not on purpose. That these things just happened. And that's, again, one of the points I hope people take away from reading it is that these things don't happen on purpose, and it's just a shame that most people don't get help for these conditions simply because they feel shame, they feel afraid. And so I just came back from attending the NAMI convention in New Orleans. NAMI is National Alliance for Mental Illness, and
we know them well. Know them and love them well, yes. Yeah,
they're so wonderful. And Ken Duckworth, the medical director, is just a national hero, I think. And we just need to start supporting that and really celebrating the human comedy, as I like to call it. We're all part of it. I mean, show me someone who isn't touched in one way or another by all of this, and let's stop hiding it and let's start celebrating it. And the thing is, most people who are tremendously talented are touched by one or another of the conditions we diagnose.
Absolutely.
And so let's stop forcing them to hide it and feel ashamed.
Or to conform to something that isn't.
To try to conform.
Try
turn themselves into a pretzel trying to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And creating all kinds of new mental illnesses trying to do that which is impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
I tried so hard to meet the expectations of a few people in my family, one in particular, that it actually drove me into a worse depression longer than I needed to be in it, trying to meet this standard that they don't even live themselves. And I finally, in my 40s, said, well, screw that.
Yeah, really. I want to live my life, not someone else's life.
Exactly. It's hard, though, when the narrative of your life, and I'm sure you've seen this with patients and maybe even yourself, but that narrative of your life that's playing that is someone else's voice, a parent or a sibling or whoever it may be. Let's say it's a parent, and you're living out of that narrative and you don't even know that that's what you're doing.
Exactly. You're just trying to do what some kind of force is telling you're supposed to do, and you don't feel any permission to be real, to be who you are.
Right. Or even who the heck that is. Let's discover
who that is. Even discover who you are, let alone be who you are.
Right.
And thank God I was brought up with full permission to be who I was. There was no pressure whatsoever to become anything. They didn't tell me. They didn't tell me they wanted me to go to college or achieve anything. It was just do whatever you want.
Figure it out, kiddo.
these days people worry about kids being put under too much pressure. There was no pressure on me whatsoever.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I will say this. I had no pressure other than an aunt who was into Scientology and it didn't work. But I had no pressure from either of my parents about religion. That was one of the only things that I had no pressure. And I'm grateful for that because all of my friends that have all this stuff from the different, the religious pressure that they had from within their family to conform or to do this or to do that. I can wander in and out of many different belief systems and find something wonderful and sort of go, yeah, that doesn't really work for me and not feel guilty. Yeah. And I think, I'm glad that I didn't have that pressure because that's a huge one for people is religious pressure.
Yes. Well, that's certainly true for me too. I happen to identify as an Episcopalian, but I could wander into any framework and feel at home because they all center around the idea of love and forgiveness and and being good to other people. I mean, and some promise of the future in some way or another.
Right.
Some hope and love are sort of the cornerstones.
Exactly. So, because I come from a crazy family, did you get any grief from anyone about using the word crazy?
No, I wondered about that. And in fact, at NAMI, I asked it, and they said, "Oh no, we're very comfortable with that." It's the way people in AA use the word drunk. They say, "Oh, I'm just a drunk," and I had one friend who said, "Don't use the word crazy; it's too coarse." But it's again my way of trying to destigmatize. If you can't use the coarse word, then who the hell can? I mean, so it sort of beat them to the punch, and so since I'm part of it, why can't I use it? And
exactly.
And so so I know I didn't. There was one person who said he objected to it, but I think he
one out of a chorus of many.
Right. I think he didn't understand he didn't understand the point really, and so.
Well, I don't need to ask you like I ask many guests because there are so many mental health providers on different stages of their path to getting into this profession. I don't need to ask you, well, what motivated you to become a psychiatrist? Because clearly that's already
because
answered.
I come from a crazy family. Exactly. That's exactly.
How were you able to, well, first of all, I read in your bio that you had learning disabilities. What were they? Dyslexia or I know ADHD, but what were?
Yeah, I have both ADHD and dyslexia, and again, one of the things I've pushed my whole life is to say these are not purely disabilities, that they're traits, because embedded in the so-called disability are tremendous gifts. I majored in English at Harvard College and graduated with high honors. Now, I have so-called a reading disability and dyslexia, and it's true. I'm a very, very, very slow reader. Mm. And I have a focusing problem in ADHD, and it's true. My mind wanders a lot. But I must be able to focus and read, to major in English at Harvard and graduate with high honors while also doing pre-med, So, and that's what people don't understand, that these conditions need not disable you if you also develop the talents that come with them, and that's where we need to expand how we look at them instead of seeing them as pure disabilities. You see, when we do that, we run the risk of creating the real disability of believing you're a loser, and that's what happens to a lot of kids. We tell them they've got these disabilities. And then they buy into that and they say, okay, I'm a loser, I'm stupid, because they don't use the fancy words we use. They use words like retard, loser, dumb, stupid, and they then that becomes the disability. They think they're less than, that they're impaired, that they can't do it.
Yep.
And that old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. That's true. That's been proven to be true. Carol Dweck with her growth mindset, she's proven that's correct.
That's so true.
And so I'm big on saying, let's be careful that we remind everyone who has these conditions that Sure, there's a downside to them, but there's a big upside. And so I tell people I don't treat disabilities. I help people unwrap their gifts.
Oh. Okay, I could cry right now, but yes, that's fantastic. How about a situation where you are working with someone and their relationship with a family member, let's say, maybe it's one of their parents or it's an uncle or whatever, and that particular person is extremely abusive, extremely toxic, and this person could have tried for years everything to try to change the situation, but they're just not going to, and staying in it is actually damaging and hurtful to them, but they feel so guilty, like they're abandoning someone who's clearly, ill in some way or another. Mm-hmm. I ask this of psychiatrists all the time because I love hearing the unique way this is answered. But how do you work with a patient who is in that situation and staying in the relationship? They can bend themselves like a pretzel, as we discussed earlier, to try to make it work, and it's just not going to happen. How do you help them navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to get out. I mean, I wrote a whole book on forgiveness, and they have to learn to forgive and get out. And forgiveness does not mean you condone what was done. You condemn what was done. By my definition of forgive is you renounce the feeling of anger and resentment. And that's how you get over the guilt. You get out, and forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. You get out by saying, I'm not going to punish myself. I'm not going to give my life to this person who is hurting me. And I'll let that person somehow take care of himself or go find another victim. But I'm not going to continue to be that victim. I'm not going to serve myself up as a sacrifice. I'm actually worth more than that. And I'll help that person get in touch with the part of that person who feels that way. And so, but my first job is to get that person out of that situation, and I'll do whatever I have to do that. And then coach them on how to forgive, which does not mean condone. And now a lot of people don't understand that. Forgiveness does not mean condone. It means you renounce the feeling that anger and resentment, or in this case, guilt, have over you. You renounce the feeling that those feelings of anger, resentment, or guilt have over you. And so you free yourself from that prison. And it's a gift you're giving to yourself. The other person may be completely unaware of it.
Right.
And you've freed yourself. You've freed yourself. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to see. So I'm in the business, in this case, of setting someone free of what William Blake called the mind-forged manacles. It's a wonderful phrase. Ooh. And in a relationship like that, you're a prisoner of your own mind-forged manacles. It's not the other person who's imprisoning you. It's you who's imprisoning you.
I know. No one likes commercials, but seriously, folks, without the help from these organizations, we could not stay on the air. Please give a shout out to zencharts.com. If you're a mental health or addiction treatment center, you'll want to use their EHR. It's gorgeous. And they're just good people. And also MyGenetics, MyGenetx.com, because knowing your genetic code empowers your mental health treatment. And lastly, CopeNotes.com. We love getting positive messages right to our phones every day from Johnny Crowder. He's the lead singer of Prison, a heavy metal band sharing their music about suicide prevention, addiction recovery, and mental health. See, that was painless. Support them as they support us. Back to the show.
It's not the other person who's imprisoning you. It's you who's imprisoning you. And once you understand that you have control. It's not the other person. Your mind forged those manacles. You can use your mind to break them. And I will help you do that. I will help you break those mind-forged manacles, and then you're free.
And it doesn't mean that you have to go visit that person at that point.
No, you don't have to ever see that person again.
Exactly.
Ever.
Even if they're your brother, your mother, your whoever.
You never have to see that person again, and in most cases, you shouldn't.
Right.
It'll just re-traumatize yourself. In most cases, you shouldn't.
Right.
And you're free. You're free. You never have to see that person again. Never.
Right.
And people think you have to go see that person. No, you don't. Never. Never. You're free. And then now you're free to make a new relationship and start afresh.
Right.
And it's my job to help you set yourself free. And it's a wonderful job.
Let's talk about ADHD, because that's such an interesting topic. And it was so interesting because myself, our program director, Melanie, and Dr. Meyer all took I don't know what maybe it's the World Health Organization's test that's online, whatever. It's the main test that people use to determine ADHD and ADD. And we all scored super califragilistically high.
Excellent. Well, it's a marker of talent. I'm telling you, the most interesting people have it.
Oh, it doesn't
it's a
feel
wonderful
like
thing to have. What?
It doesn't feel like it sometimes. I'm like,
well, no. There is a downside. There's definitely a downside, and that's why you need to take it seriously. No, the prisons are full of people with undiagnosed ADD, and so are the halls of the addicted. So you have to take it seriously, absolutely, and get help for it. No, absolutely. But if you do, it's basically you've got a race car brain with bicycle brakes. Oh. And if you don't strengthen the brakes, you can crash and get very badly hurt. But if you do strengthen the brakes, you win races. I mean, the people, the super successful people who have it are just many of them. And so you want to get those brakes strengthened. And if you do, the sky's the limit. But if you don't, you're at big time risk. And so race car brain with bicycle brakes.
Is that your quote, or is that someone else's?
No, that's mine.
Oh, I am putting that on a meme, and I'm slapping your name on it. That is so profound.
Yeah.
I think there's no way that I could have created this company that I've created with all these amazing mental health people doing podcasts if I didn't have ADHD and ADD. There's just no way. There's no way. And yet I still struggle with okay, Kristin, you just got a whole lot of whatever, money or this or that. You don't have to let go and now spend it all down to nothing, or energy, spend it all down to, you can put the brakes on.
Oh, Kristin, let me talk to you offline and get your ADD treated. Believe me, race car brain with bicycle brakes sums it up. I mean, it really is. It's the perfect model for what this is all about. And it's your gift. But until you learn to strengthen the brakes, it'll be costing you.
Yeah, and, I'm learning. I mean, I'm surrounded by people like you, so it's amazing. But
that's one of the keys is to delegate.
Yeah.
But don't surround yourself with people like me, because I have it too. So. You and I will go careening off into outer space.
Exactly. That's too funny too. I always think that's why my ex-husband and I are, there's many reasons why we're still such close friends, but he has ADHD out the wazoo, but he has learned, because he's in a lot of physical pain from injuries and so on, he has to say no. And this is a guy that, no, you don't just tackle someone in football. You tackle them at a force of a sumo wrestler and drag them across a field off to 3 miles past the touchdown zone or whatever. I don't know sport.
Was he a football player?
Oh, he played every single sport, every single one of them. And now he's paying the price for it, but he is the most, he is the first one that will say, Kristin, put a governor on it.
Yeah. Most entrepreneurs have ADHD.
It's a requirement.
Yeah.
How have you learned for your own, because we all have our own little things that help us with ours. So how have you learned to temper that within yourself and get those good brakes on instead of the bicycle brakes?
Marry the right person, find the right job. Those are the two keys as an adult. For school, it was go to schools. I lucked out. I went to very structured schools Exeter for high school, all the classes were at round tables, and so someone was always looking at me, which meant I paid attention. And it was all Socratic method, so there was no memorization; it was all questions. So I was always engaged. And then Harvard, it was again Socratic inquiry. There were lectures, but most of those broke down into sections, and I had these brilliant teachers. I mean, I'd never had a bad teacher. I'm one of the few people in the world who can say I never had a bad teacher from first grade on. It was so I lucked out. I mean, I didn't luck out in other ways. The adverse child experience score. That score?
Yes, yeah.
The ACEs score. If you have a score of 4 or above, you're basically supposed to have no chance of having happiness in adult life. And,
I've scored very high on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what your score is?
I don't remember, but I know that it was above a 4.
Yeah. Okay. Mine is 8.
Yeah.
Out of 10, and so if you're up there with me, I'll bet you relied on what I relied on, which is the power of connection. It's the power of, exactly, the power of friendship, and you find it where you find it. The power of teachers, friends, a dog, nature, special people. I mean, and that's I think the single greatest tool in life to find strength and celebrate good times and deal with adversity is the power of connection. And sort of it's what you're doing with your podcast.
That's why I sometimes do 5 shows a day, and my friends are like, "Why? What are you doing?" Because it helps me. And I just looked it up. I put it on mute for 2 seconds, looked it up. I was an 8. I got an 8 on that.
Yep. So we're the same. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it's a miracle that we're sitting here talking to each other. I'm 68. Are you in that ballpark?
I'm 48.
Well, okay. You're doing great. And, you really, honest God, with an 8, that's spectacular. My hat goes off to you. That's really spectacular. And would you agree it's connection that,
oh my gosh, 1,000. I mean, there's no such thing as 1,000%. My accountant would be like, will you stop saying 1,000%? That's not actually valid. Yeah.
But we know what you mean. You mean emphatically yes.
Emphatically yes. Absolutely is connection. Yeah. And the big thing for me was getting away from family members that wanted me all to themselves. And so they would literally cause issues and disconnects, and with everybody in my life that I had all this connection with, so that they just had me a lot of narcissistic personality disorder in my family. And as an adult, I've figured this out and started making those exits so that I can now freely connect with whoever the heck I want, and I know what looks healthy and what doesn't, for the most part, because of look at who I can look at as examples. And now life is this amazing thing because I can connect as much as I want to and need to.
Yes, and I call it the other vitamin C, Vitamin Connect. It's free and it's infinite in supply. It's a wonder drug. It really is, and it's what saved you and me.
You know what?
We should be dead.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, explain what you mean by that, just so our listener, I get it, but just so our listeners that aren't there yet and don't realize it, what do you mean by that?
By why we should be dead, or what?
Yeah, why we should be dead, because based on what we've been through and all those things.
Yeah, the stressors we endured. This study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, showed that people who dealt with what we had to deal with, it's so stressful that by the time they get to be your age and my age, we're either severely marginalized, alcoholic, in prison, suicidal, depressed, or literally dead, just because the human body and psyche just can't take what we had to go through. And so the only way you can reasonably compensate is to find positive alternatives, and that doesn't come in the form of money, fame, or achievement. It comes in the form of positive connection. It comes basically love, but then, short of love, it's, friendship, it's attachment, it's affiliation, membership, a group, not a cult, but a sustaining group.
Tried one of those, didn't work.
A warm and genuine group. Not a group that wants to own you, but a group that wants to support you and sustain you. And if you're lucky enough to find that, then you can make it. Then you can beat the odds. It's just that most people with scores of 8, 9, or 10 don't find that, and they perish. So we're very, very lucky, and we have a lot to be grateful for. And then you're giving back through your podcasts and your work, and I try to with my books and my
everything. That's a big, huge piece of it too, isn't it? I mean, you can't. I can't not do that. That is part of how I how I maintain, is by giving and being of service to others as much as I possibly can.
It's not a good deed. It's like a necessary thing, It's like it feels so wonderful, and it's like we've discovered something that we need to share.
Yes.
And we need others to know about this, and we need to cry it from the rooftops. Life can be good. Learn how to connect.
Right.
And don't get so preoccupied with your pursuit of the false idols. I have nothing against people making a lot of money or pursuing fame. Just don't do it to the exclusion of also cherishing connection.
Right. And don't, there's a few that I've met on the road that say, oh, it's a media company. Let me attach myself to her and she'll do all these wonderful things for me. And literally all they care about is the fame, the success, is I'm going to do, I had one thing, I'm going to beat every single one of your podcasters' numbers. I'm going to get the best ratings. And I sat there listening and I was thinking, oh God, how am I going to say no to this person? Because he is going to be so injured narcissistically when I tell him you don't belong here. Because that's not how we operate.
This is not, sorry, Charlie. You're not the tuna we're looking for.
Exactly. Or a meme machine. Let me tell you, I've never written as many notes. I've interviewed a lot of people. I'm like writing down things. We're going to make that a meme. And here's another one. I didn't see Connect. And the bike and the brakes. Oh my gosh. That's Charlie and the tuna. Another good one. Well, how do you, you've talked about it, but I can just tell because I can feel it. You are just bubbling with positive energy. How do you attribute being able to maintain that when you had such a childhood? I know you've talked a little bit about that, but just like on the everyday stuff, just the everyday things that can creep in.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I'm not always that way. I have dark moments for sure, as I imagine you do as well. So it's not a constant bubbling of positive energy. I do, my childhood is with me for good and for ill, and so. But I think the main part of me is positive, and hope does bubble up every day, and the positive energy you hear is genuine and real. And it's probably for the same reason as you, that we were born with a hope gene, with a optimistic gene, with a bluebird of happiness in our heart or something. We just, it's irrepressible, and we look for the good side, and we'd rather hug than reject. And we rather take the risk of reaching out than retreat.
Not. That's the biggest thing. I know people will say, Kristin, you give too much. You are too this. And I'm like, okay. I take that. But you know what? I am going to keep doing it. I do it smarter every time I learn. I do learn. But I'm not going to not be that person, because 9 times out of 10, it's amazing.
Yep. I'm with you 100%. And that's just who we are, and we keep bubbling, and then when we have our dark moments, we have our dark moments, but we tend to reach out. One of my mottos is never worry alone. So, when I get down, I reach out, as opposed to shutting down and retreating, so.
I just wrote that one down too. Cause you know what you hear from people? You hear, oh, don't be a burden. Don't dump your stuff on other people because you might ruin their day too.
Oh, no. Never worry alone. Never worry alone. It's the bad things happen when you worry alone. That's when you make bad choices. I mean, that's when suicides happen. That's when, that's when really bad things happen, bad decisions. Never worry alone. Believe me, you're not burdening someone. It's an honor you pay to someone when you share with them a serious problem.
I just wrote an email to one of our podcasters who does our show about EMTs, and it's called Rescue the Rescuer, and it's all about being a first responder. And he, had drug addiction issues and all kinds of things, and now he does this podcast. He's another one of those, bubbles over. He probably had a 7 or an 8 as well. And I sent him this email, and it wasn't that long. It was like a couple paragraphs of just this worry that I have. And he wrote me back and he said, okay, that's a lot for me to process. But we'll get through this. I will, because I don't do that very often. And we'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And I felt guilty for a minute. And now that you just said that, thank you, because you just gave me a gift. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. And that's what he signed up for with me. And he certainly does it to me. So.
Yes.
Well, we could talk for another 12 hours, but I know that you have other people to speak with and connect with. So please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you.
Well, my website, drhallowell.com, that's HALLOWELL.com. You can get my book, Because I Come From a Crazy Family, on Amazon or any other online outlet or bookstores.
I'm buying it today. Buy it BTW, yeah.
Wonderful. If you want to email me, it's drhallowell@gmail.com. I love to hear from people. I have offices in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and New York City. I'm pretty easy to find.
Fantastic. Well, stay on for a second. We're going to chat for a minute after, but first I want to say thank you so much. I don't know how we found you or you found us, but what a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners for another edition of Mental Health News Radio.
I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps. Or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can fight it.
Good boy.
My mom has a permanently stuck in the 80s thing. We're talking teased up feathered hair, acid wash denim jacket, and shoulder pads. So many shoulder pads. But I just got a new phone from AT&T, and check this out. I got a second phone to gift my mom. So now she can finally ditch her old one for a phone that can actually stream all the 80s shows she loves.
Come into an AT&T store and find out how to get a smartphone on us. AT&T, more for your thing. That's our thing. See store for details.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.